Roger Alwen, CARC, 14th of May, 1991.
Yeah, let me take you back to sort of 85, I think. No point in going back further than that, because you'll know what's happened. I mean, the valley was gradually getting in. Nothing had happened to the valley for 30 years. The club had sort of taken a dive. Unfortunately, the Glixtons, who were the start of the whole thing, Michael unfortunately lost. They never spent any money on the valley. Michael Glixton, who'd come down to, had lost interest in the club, and literally all that was left, as far as he was concerned, was the valley. Had no interest in the football club at all, and that's what really caused the debacle of '84, because originally he'd taken in Mark Hullier as the saviour of the club, and he was just going to sit there with the valley and the football club. But as it turned out, I mean, it was an absolute disaster.
This is the worst move that I've ever seen in football.
Well, I mean, as it turned out, but of course, on the face of it, it seemed there was going to be the injection of money into the football club, and there was the ground. The problem was, of course, there wasn't actually enough money for the football club, and Michael Glixton had no interest unless people were prepared to spend money. There was no interest in doing anything for the valley. I mean, if you think of the facilities there were no facilities at the valley. I mean, you actually had to be very, very dedicated to turn up to watch football at that stage. So it was decided, as powers that be at that particular moment in time, decided, well, they couldn't come to an arrangement. If there were going to be millions to be spent on the valley, you needed a long lease. Michael Glixton wasn't interested in, extending that much beyond the 7 years, and there was a total standoff situation. The owners of the football club and the owner of the ground, so they don't actually come to an agreement. And I think what should have happened, and hindsight's terribly easy, there should have been a month's standoff, I think, because you often think of decisions taken in haste, and then you think a couple of days later, in fact, I wonder whether I should have actually done that. And I'm sure that is a classic decision, taking Charlton to Selhurst Park. If only the two sides had said, we're fighting, let's just cool it down, let's go away for a month, let's give it a bit of thought. Now, what's in the best interest of me as the owner of the ground and the owners of the football club? What in fact happened, of course, the owners of the football club said, sorry to you, and literally that sort of notice, we're out. Did a deal with Ron Notes, and the club went to Selhurst Park almost overnight.
1937, Charlton was going to have the biggest ground in the country. Turn the pitch that way, they could call that Stanhurst, and they're all about 120,000.
So that was the start, and of course the problem was the deal that was then done with Crystal Palace was a rent plus 50% of the maintenance of the ground. The intention when the club moved there was that that Charlton should have in due course a 50% interest in Selhurst Park. Now, if you have a 50% interest in the ground, a 50% maintenance clause is all right. If you end up paying rent plus 50% maintenance and don't actually have 50% ownership of the ground, then you're on a real loser. So that's in fact what happened, and of course there was then a falling out. Well, not a falling out. There was no agreement on the purchase of the ground, because as it turned out, and it wasn't Sunday's fault at the time, Crystal Palace could not produce a title to Selhurst Park, so they couldn't actually sell 50% interest to Charlton, because nobody could actually trace that Crystal Palace had actually got the title to the ground. Now that has been resolved, but I mean it was a real bit of sod's law, that the 50% interest. The only thing that, of course, if that had gone ahead, then and Charlton had 50% interest, then of course the valley and everything else would have disappeared into the mist. So
gone for okay.
you wouldn't have had the supporters
No.
going there, but at least, but then you would have had, at a reason, at that particular moment in time, a 50% interest in a ground which was worth quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you would also have had something that, I mean, during the last 5 years, because of that 50% maintenance clause, we've on average paid between £200,000 and £300,000 a year.
Yes, a lot of money.
And the last 2 years in particular, because of the Taylor report making all the improvements necessary in the seating and everything else, that has made it even more expensive because there are certain things that have had to be done. And Ron knows, I mean, you can't blame him for what he has said. Right, this year I'm going to seat the Arthur Waite. Last year I'm going to seat with the Arthur Waite stand. Therefore, you're going to pay half of it.
So that you weren't involved in executive
Is that
decisions?
why Wimbledon are urging on it?
No, sorry.
Is that why Wimbledon are urging on it, on this deal there?
Wimbledon, Sammy Haman would not go in, I think. I don't think he will, knowing the sort of person he is. I don't think he'll go in unless he's got a 50% interest in the ground. I mean, it's all very well, fine, if you go in and you pay literally a rent, and you turn up and play football, fine. If you've got to then pay half of it to maintain it, then, you know...
So any...
Years ago, they never had a biscuit, Crystal Palace.
No, I mean, give him his due, they've done well.
So any of the decisions that were made by Ron Motor regarding the ground itself, were you and the rest of the board involved in discussions over that? Or
We were involved in what it was going to cost and what, and we tried to make sure that, it was limited, I suppose. But there were certain things that had to happen. There are safety aspects, and of course there are grants for that, which you get out of what was the old Football Grounds Improvement Trust, which is now the Football Trust. But of course, there is a gross cost, your grant, and then there was a net cost, which was split between the two clubs. There were things that had to be done. Now, we couldn't argue when he said we're going to seat the Arthur Waite, because that was all part of what was got to happen. In what we would have liked to have happened was that he did all those improvements after we'd gone.
He didn't actually have to do those improvements.
He didn't actually have to seek the Arthur Waite at that particular moment in time, but he couldn't actually hang. On the other hand, we couldn't say, well, hang around because we're going, or we might go because there was a scenario that if the local authority, we'd had one shot last year, and we'd said, right, this was absolutely marginal, this time as the scheme, we reduced it. Then if we didn't get planning consent this time, then unfortunately, at that particular moment in time, the value was going to have to be dead and buried. Now, whether we could have survived Selhurst is, I doubt, but it would have then, long term, but we would have then had to look for somewhere else. So we couldn't actually turn around to Ron Notes and say, we're actually definitely going to be out. We'd given notice. We gave notice 2 years ago, which was the requisite notice to give on the basis that we were going to be out. We thought we were going to be out at the end of the season before last, but we had to give 2 years notice. So we were always going to be stuck for 1 year. As it's turned out, in fact, we haven't actually, we didn't lose, but we were prepared to do the year. If the authority hadn't given us our consent then, that would have, you can't go on forever. It's taken us 3.5 years. Yeah. So that's part of the story. So what's happened, of course, since we're going to Selhurst, you all know the situation. It really has been. From an emotional point of view, and a lot of clubs will never ever be in the first division, and we've been there probably more than most. We had a whole 20 years when it was 36 to 56, I think, whatever it was, 57. There are some clubs never been there, but I look at those 4 years that we had in the first division as a bonus, because it's 4 years that some clubs will never ever have. From a financial point of view, to to move out of your ground, to move to somewhere else where you're just renting. Your fans are unhappy, people won't go, and it's absolute sod's law that you then get promotion out of the second division to the first division. I mean, you just, that sort of thing could only happen in football because the timing of it, from a purely a financial point of view, was a total disaster. I mean, it was always going to be a question of putting a hand in your pocket and just sort of, just, well,
I was set up where they giving the money out of. They must have to do a lot of money.
There's a question
Surely
about
when Charlton went to the palace, they knew the terms of the agreement, surely.
yes, but they had no option.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
yeah, but that wasn't the problem. That wasn't going to be the killer. The killer was trying to maintain first division football, trying to stay in the first division. I mean, that's what we were always hoping that we were actually going to produce a side, or being able to produce a side that was actually going to hang on in until we actually hopefully had the resources to stay there properly. But it was, I suppose, 4 years was probably a bit of a bonus in theory. I mean, we could have gone down at any particular moment in time.
What about people say about wanting to be the small big notes? Would there have been a chance of that? Had you been given as board of directors?
Would there have been?
Yeah.
Oh, there would have been a whole list of clubs that would have taken Charlton into play.
So, I mean, why did they go to Bill Warriors? Bill Warriors the manager.
And I mean, with the greatest respect, it's the last place in the world I would want to Charlton. I have absolutely nothing against Millwall, but
Once you get to Selhurst, not even this, it's a good station. Once you get to Selhurst,
there's absolutely nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with Selhurst Park as a football ground at all. If you're going to ground share, if you're going to ground share, there's only one way of ground sharing. It's for the two clubs, as they've done it on the continent, is to sell whatever they've got and to go away and build a new stadium which everybody identifies as part of their own. So, for instance, the two Milan clubs have got this magnificent thing. There's no problem there, but part of that is for AC and part of it's for Inter. In Gothenburg, you've actually got 3 clubs that managed to use the same stadium. But they didn't actually move, one club didn't move in to somebody else's home. And I think the problem that you can never ever overcome is the fact that it was always Charlton Athletic turning up every other week or whatever it was to play the football in somebody else's ground.
Yeah,
and nobody, and that I think at the end of the road would get through the players. There's no identity at all.
Too far away anyway.
Well, but I mean, it was disaster. Wimbledon, what you also need is a little bit of luck, and Wimbledon had that little bit of luck when they had some decent players, and they won the FA Cup. You only need to do that. Ron knows Crystal Palace effectively had two cup finals last year. And they got their, I mean, they made about £3 million out of that. What he's done, he's gone, spent his money well, he bought the various players, and he's got himself he's got himself a half decent. Well, yeah, but I mean that.
Have you got a West Man going now then, a scouting system?
Always had a scouting, but you can quote all sorts of places. I mean, you have players who start up. I mean, if you look at the classic example at the present time is that David Platt was released by Man United, went to Crewe because they thought there was no hope for on a free. Sold for 200,000 to Aston Villa, and they just refused to go to Italy for £4.7 million. I mean, it happens all sorts of ways. I mean, we pick up players in different areas. I mean, you're never going to keep, or you're never going to get all the players in your area. I mean, they're going to go to all sorts of places.
Our players, though, made the grade, just coming through from the juniors, right the way through, and just when they've made the grade, they've gone.
Right. That's always been the problem, because it's been the original financial tightrope. We've actually tried to make sure the thing is actually going, keeps going, and also trying to, balance the books. So we decided in '87 that we'd actually, the club had no home really at all. We were renting what is now the training ground. It was in a terrible bloody state, and turning up to Selhurst and playing football. So we decided that there was absolutely no future in that at all, and we took the decision that the only way that the club could actually, we could never go into the market, buy expensive players. We actually had to try and produce them. And once we've now started trying to produce them, we've actually got to try and keep them. But we were never going to do that while we were playing football at Selhurst Park. Because there just weren't the resources. I don't know. The money that has gone in the last 5 years is fierce.
No. And they've been losing it because there's every danger of them going down this year. Was danger.
Oh, that would have
Players
been
going.
very easy to slip through the trap door. An awful lot of sides have gone straight from the first to the third. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. If you look at Wolves, but a lot of people said at the time we bought the training ground, why on earth are you spending all that money? Why don't you go out and buy yourself a couple of players? Well, we spent 500,000 immediately on that place to get it right, and we spent probably another 250,000 since then. There's an all-weather pitch there now for the School of Excellence and that sort of thing. And I think that will prove to be our saviour long term. I think we could have gone out and bought a couple of players, and you might think, well, that might have done it, but that wasn't actually going to solve the problem long term. What we're actually doing now is producing a lot of very, because they like the facilities. These kids, when parents take the kids there, that suddenly they think, oh, this is a nice place. Like the pitch, like the facilities. I think I might want to play for Charlton. I don't want to go to West Ham. I don't want to go to Tottenham. I might give Charlton a go. Whereas in the past, there was nothing to attract them at all. So what we've got to try and do now is give ourselves half a chance of not only producing those, and there are about 5 or 6 of them, I should think, at least. There are certainly 5 or 6 of them who could well be pushing in the next year, certainly next year or the year after, for a first team place. I don't know whether any of you go to Welling. Well, I watched a couple of games last week. We played West Ham on a Monday, and that was a fairly senior reserve side. But I don't know if you saw the side that played Norwich on the Tuesday, and it was a 2-2 draw. Without Steve Britt, who was 33 as a coach, there wasn't another kid in there who was over 18.
Charlton produced 2 players from their youth team. One was captain Scotland, and the other central defenders playing for England, whereas at least he's in the England big team. That's Scotland for here. Both went to nothing.
Well, Paul Alwen didn't, but the guy was only there for a bit.
On his way back now, he's been talked about as playing in there.
Yeah, I think he has unfortunately got a major problem. He's got a major knee problem. So his football is very limited. It's all a question of how you keep him fit, which is sad. But he's done well to get back, because when he went to Pisa,
He went to France.
no, he went to Pisa, went to Italy, and I don't think he didn't enjoy that very much. But that's the situation. Having got the value, what we've now got to try and do is get the people to come back to keep the players the youngsters that we've
Is the
got.
club on a reasonably sound financial basis now?
We don't have an overdraft. Which is about, I think we're probably one of the few football clubs in the country that doesn't have an overdraft. We don't have a lot in the bank, but we don't have an overdraft.
To me, seeing the youngsters and the way they perform, I thought, well, the future looks rallying to me.
Yeah, as long as we don't have to sell our assets.
You keep them, but they're homegrown youngsters, and to me, they seem to be playing. No, they're playing against the team they wanted to play football.
Well, that's the way Ardiles likes to play, isn't it?
What you were talking about, head tennis,
No.
it was a game that was played mainly on the ground, but what I saw, and I commented to the people around me, which was mostly all these young men, it looked good for the future.
Well, I've no qualms about, the future at all. I think we've got, they talk about the Arsenal youngsters being talented. I think we've got as many talented youngsters.
I watched Anthony Barnes playing in the youth team, and I think it's going to be a great.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's very interesting. Just take, you need a mixture of old heads and young legs in a side. But it's very funny. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, it looked as though Anthony Barnes was going to get a couple of games towards the end of the season in the first team because he's done extremely well in the youth team and the reserve games. And whether it was the thought of playing, he was in the squad 1 week, whether the thought, his next 2 or 3 reserve games were absolute total, he had a real mare, real nightmare, and it was a real disaster. And in fact, the one person who actually got his game on Saturday was Andy Salako, who played right back. John Salako's brother. That's his younger brother. And he played in the last 3 weeks. Suddenly, he'd not been so good at the beginning of the season, but suddenly had come on. He's a good athlete.
Like Darren Pitcher, for me, he's
Tremendous season, yeah. I don't want to be tackled by Darren. Yes. I don't think so. I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was an awful tackle. He deserved to go off, and he actually skinned his leg from his knee down to his ankle. But it wasn't a vicious one. I think it was just one of those awful bad time tackles. Yeah, frustration.
As soon as that happened, I took my hand up. Before I said to the referee, surely red card. Next thing you know, he got a ball straight off the ground, and down he got straight to his spine. Woof! And they got 10.
Yeah, because he was a young kid. He was only 18. It's one of the people. Yeah, because it's the first. It's a hard learning, short and sharp learning curve. And he was desperately upset. Apparently, sat in the dressing room. He was crying like a baby. Because he was desperately upset, and he didn't. I'm absolutely certain it wasn't one of those.
Was a professional.
Wasn't professional. But laws of the game, he had to go off. Because could have broken his leg.
Was there any chance of signing Charlton,
Yeah, we actually made an offer. Alan Kernigan suited us very well. He played very well with Simon Webster. And he'd fallen out. They didn't seem, for some reason, they didn't like him at Middlesbrough. I don't know why. Don't know whether but he has a little bit of a problem. He's diabetic. I don't know whether you notice. Yeah. I don't know whether you notice on very hot days or warm days when he halfway through he's often come off. He drinks a lot, whether he dehydrates. So that's when medicals one's got to be a bit careful. But he suited us extremely well. Yeah. But it doesn't sometimes. A lot of people can carry on, but other people, as long as it's totally controlled, then it's not a problem. But Middlesbrough were obviously in the playoff place, and they're absolute game. Solskjaer, and it happens in football. Mowbray, their central defender, managed to get a 1-match suspension. One match, and they decided to recall Kernigan for that one match, which he played in. I also think it was, and I don't think it was very remote, and I never thought it was really a possibility, but in theory, we actually had a chance after that run of about 6 games of getting in the playoffs. I think Middlesbrough also looked at that, as everybody does, and said, well, if we recall Kernigan, that sods them up probably anyway. But if they needed it, we actually we knew what Middlesbrough wanted, we made them an offer before the deadline to actually buy Kerrigan at their price, and they wouldn't sell it. First stop after the playoffs, because Middlesbrough in the playoffs and they can't do anything until the end of the month, will be to try and sign him. He's made it clear that he would like to come back. We would obviously like to have him. A lot depends on Middlesbrough. Now, it's going to be difficult if Middlesbrough get promoted and they think he's part of the scene. Nothing we can do about it. But no, I think if they don't get up, then they'll sell him. So I mean that would be good. As you probably gather, I mean Tommy Caton's a good soldier, but he's had a problem. He's played for a long time with a foot problem, which everybody thought it was because of a broken bone, but it looks as though it might be something a bit more than that.
Earlier in the season, there was report there was a move to get Colin Pace back on loan from Arsenal.
Arsenal.
And that was refused by George Graham. And
Yes.
later on, he was loaned to Brighton.
Because George Graham would think that having sold him to them, that we were taking the piss. I think, trying to get him back on loan.
Middlesbrough, the worst pitch in the country.
Good service. Good surface. It's got grass on it. That's a very good one.
The ball that way,
The sheep aren't on there anymore.
the pitch itself, if you have the ball, you were in trouble. You need a shovel.
It is a very good. What I have noticed, it's a very good surface, but it's one of those that's got a tremendous crown on it. I don't know whether you noticed. The ball runs. But some of them. I mean, you don't want the ball. Yeah. Oh, they've got to have their crown, but I mean, that one is very, very noticeable. It runs away.
You are.
I don't mind, but I'll buy everybody a cup of tea.
I've got a question I would like to get.
Right.
Now, you've explained quite a lot about what's happened in recent years and right up to date. Now then, next season, if you're unable to get to the Valley for the first 2 or 3 weeks, we don't know that. Could you tell us if there's any likely team that you've got in hand?
No, I mean, we have absolutely no contingency plan or plan B, simply because we've taken the view that if we give the contractors an alternative, we actually say to them, well, if you're not actually finished by August the 17th or whenever it is, then we can go to West Ham, Leighton Orient, or whoever. The chances are, I bet you anything, that they wouldn't be finished. Yeah. As far as we're concerned, we have said they have been told that the first game is on August the 17th. End of story. Now, the only contingency plan that we have, and which is an easier one, is to say to the Football League, before the fixtures come out of the computer, which is another month, 6 weeks, is to say, we will play our first 2 games away from home. So we have 2 away fixtures for the start of the season, and just...
But what are the difficulty there also comes with the League Cup? I mean, that often starts.
Yeah.
What stage is that?
Right. Yes. So you say you want to play the first leg away from home, because the second leg isn't until the middle of September. So there are all precedents for that. Tottenham did that when the East Stand wasn't finished. Liverpool did it when they had a broken serve. So we could actually get ourselves to 1st of September, I think. It's that bank holiday weekend, I think. Now, I mean, fingers crossed, we don't actually need to do that, but we'll know before then. But I mean, we're certainly not going to do it. I mean, we would have to have a major disaster on our hands, that something, I mean, they've all got their deadlines. We don't know whether there are people, I mean, the fellows in there, they're in there at the moment, the fences are coming down and the East Terrace is being cleared. So, all you can do, but it's fingers crossed. The one thing, the big advantage we've got actually at the moment is that none of the contractors have got any work. You know, I mean, everybody, because of recession, etc., everybody's desperate for work. And so from that point of view, from a cost and timing point of view, it's probably, we've just arrived at the right time. It would have been better if we'd actually been doing it 2 years ago. It would have been even better.
What had in the programme that the West End for August 1992?
Because that's major development. We're going to be three-sided for next season. The West Stand will not. The West Stand is a major construction. Now, what we decided, we could have said, right, we'll stay another year at Selhurst Park and build the thing during now and let the contractors have the run of the ground, and that makes life much easier for them. The reason that it's going to take longer to build that West Stand is that we've said to the contractor he's got to build it from outside. He can't go anywhere near the pitch. So he's got to build it, in fact, from literally from behind.
From the
Because,
touchline backwards?
well, or he's got to go in from behind. He can't go that way because of the south stand and the north stand. And he can't go that way because of the pitch. So he's got to build it from behind. That means, you can't argue with it, it can't happen so quickly. It's also a major, it's a major development. No, you won't have done yet. There are about 5 on the short list. All bidding. No, they haven't got it yet. No. Want to wait? You want to wait for the final deal? Yes. No problem. No, it'll be all right. It should be all right.
The other part of my question was this, finance.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned finance a little while ago. Now, next season, the crisis. Now, I understand that the supporters club, not only the supporters club, but many other people object to all this £10 going in fee next year. Because you've got to remember, since Charlton left and went to the Palace, 4 great firms that supported them financially have gone. It's the Arsenal, Johnson, Phillips, Harvey, Siemens, they've all gone. So, do you expect the people to pay £10?
No. What we decided to do was that to encourage everybody was to actually really get them to buy a season ticket. Now, we'll only get people, the floating supporter, we will only get the floating supporter to pay £10 if the product's right. And he's only going to go in there, we're only going to get those people in there if there's a half a successful team. So that's what we've got to try and do, is to produce something that's successful. And if something's successful, then people will probably come along and pay it.
I would also propose that the emotional ties with the ground and the amount of publicity over the past couple of years on the fight to return to the Valley, there are a lot of people out there who will be willing to come, who will now maybe think twice about returning because of the increased admission charges.
We had to think about that, but at the end of the road,
So it's whether you start with the hardcore and try and build from that on the pitch,
we have to start with a hardcore, because quite honestly, and what will happen, I mean, and I know everybody's complaining about ours, but you'll find that everybody's prices, and this is not an excuse because we're light years behind with facilities, but because of Taylor and the money that to get a safety certificate these days, every club is going to have to spend fortunes on their grounds. Now, rightly or wrongly, the person who suffers is the customer. I mean, it always is, whatever it is, whether you're buying a tin of baked beans or whatever it is. Usually that gets passed on. And unfortunately, this is the situation here. The clubs, you'll find that the admission prices next season at every single club, and the season ticket prices we've checked around. All right, the First Division football. The cheapest season ticket for a bad seat at Tottenham now is £750. It's gone from £400 to £750. And you'll find, unfortunately, that I'm not saying that is the norm, but you'll find that the prices that we're charging will not be out of line with other clubs. Simply because I'm not excusing what hasn't happened in the past, but it's what's now got to happen suddenly.
But where I mean, the membership, for example, for people who are existing members having to pay £20 to become a member, and they're getting a reduction, say £7 on a terrace, which is £3 less. But they have, I mean, over a season,
That makes-
20 matches, the actual mission by sending sort of £2 down the
Yeah.
supporters boost,
But
and
that's-
£8 a game, or more if I can't make the full home quota. I mean, personally, from my point of view, I can't justify buying the season ticket because I can't always make a Saturday. I'll make about 14 or 15 games, home games in the
You only
season.
have to make 17 to make it worthwhile.
But I can't guarantee that.
Can I remember what they paid to get him in the last game of that?
Remember what I paid for.
You see, the other thing which we have done, of course,
You paid £3.20 to get into that last game at the Valley. And that was 5 years ago. Now,
about 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Allowing free breaking. That's right. Is £7 a lot of money?
And VAT.
I don't think it. I mean, we did the exercise, and if we grossed up the prices that people left the valley at, and actually pro-rated them on inflation and indexed them, then you'd be paying a lot more than you're actually going to pay next season. Yeah. But I mean,
As pensioners,
yeah, I know. I appreciate, and things are hard. People, and it's a classic time, because when people have less money in their pockets now than they've ever had.
Well, I think they will have less money in their pockets for the economic situation.
Yeah.
I'd like to say this. I think on the first opening day you can charge £20 and you'll get it full. But after that, I think it's going to grip. Because I was talking to 5 people today that have never been to Charlton. But they said, oh, we'll go down on the opening day, whatever it costs. So
Yeah,
that's
but
my thought.
the problem, the worst case scenario, I think, would be for after the euphoria, obviously of getting back, is for the side to languish in the bottom half of the second division, and that's when we've got a problem. I think as long as, well, I think, but also at that stage or other, after 10 or 12 games, you get an idea as whether you've got a half decent side or not. And if we've got a half decent side, I mean, you look at West Ham, classic example. Look at their support, top of the second division. Look at the support that they had when they were in the first division. Their average gate is about 10,000 more in the second division because of the product. That's a success.
I made a comment though that as far as I'm concerned, I mean I don't watch Southern League to undergo the back in the valley. That's my opinion. I mean to me that is the spiritual home of Charlton. Put it that way.
Yeah.
But the rally in Charlton, I like fish and chips.
Well, I think that's the same for every club. It's hard to imagine Man United playing anywhere apart from Old Trafford. I mean, everybody's got, and I think that's important because I think there's I mean, we all, we're custodians, or I'm a custodian of the club at the present time, but I'm not going to be there forever. But and other people are going to be there, but the heart of the club, the heart of the club is always something that shouldn't change, and that's its ground, that's its identity, and I think that's important.
Well, while we're around this area, there's a few people here who've been having the free sponsored season tickets. For the free sponsored season tickets via Valley Gold. I don't know how many people it is, about 5 or 6, is it? A fair number. Has that just been stopped outright? Or is
I mean, what we again, I mean, you can go on forever. I mean, what we tried to do was to get everybody try to give people incentives to go to Selhurst Park, and it was all a question, how can we get, a few more there? Because quite honestly, 5,000 or 6,000 in Selhurst Park, whatever noise everybody made, it was always going to be a bit like a morgue, because they're just, it's so big for that, and it was very difficult to get any atmosphere. So we tried to create, we also felt that those people that were doing their bit to get us back to the valley should actually have those discounts. But we also decided that sooner or later they had to stop. The Valley Gold's been very good to us. We've spent to date just about 320,000 on the Valley. That's rebuilding the offices and the shop and doing bits and pieces, of which Valley Gold's contributed 200,000. So, you know, 2/3 of what. But there again, we spent another 100,000, and somebody might turn around and say, well, why didn't you spend that on buying a player? So all these things have been trying to arrive at what is a sensible balancing act.
Well, Michael Flixon said many years ago, Chair, when they were talking about the lack of support for the club, his remark was, when the customers start coming back, we will buy a player. Well, if you were running a business, you don't open the shop and wait for somebody to come in and buy something.
No. Well, that's what I say. I mean, our gamble, I mean, apart from the gamble of the Valley, which is, you know, I mean, is a still financial knife edge because it depends on the commercial development. We could not, if the authority had not given us the consent for the bowling alley, for that little bit of the work homes and those sort of things, then that sort of redevelopment just would not have stood up, you know, in financial terms. I mean, it just doesn't. There was no way that could have been financed without that. We need to try and produce. I think if we can produce a side that is half successful, then that's our gamble. I mean, I think we've now got to put ourselves in a position to try and do that instead of jumping, trying to use a little bit from that pot to pay for that pot, you know. And it's been a little bit of a chess game. Hopefully, that's coming to the end.
From the late 30s up to in the 60s, you used to get hundreds coming up from Kent.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I think there's still. I used to get a coach from Seven Oaks Car Park years and years ago.
All them people down in
No, I think you see, but if the product is right and if the club has some success on the field, then the people will come. Otherwise, you know, we're going to sort of. Yeah. But people, yeah. I mean, there are 250,000 people in the London Borough of Greenwich, 250,000 people in the London Borough of Bexley, 250,000 people in Dartford. You know, there are masses and masses of children.
Populated in the country, so
Will be to start with, but that's, what would be nice, in fact, is if we actually have a problem for people to get in. That's what I want. I mean, I don't want to intentionally leave people outside, but I want people to think, oh, I'm going to buy a season ticket because if I don't buy a season ticket, I'm not going to be able to get in. I mean, that's what.
You mean if there's 16,000 average, about 16,000 passengers?
16.8, yes.
Yeah, but I mean that's easily built up, not it?
Well, it will be if the side's successful.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And that at the moment in time, if somebody comes to us and says, we can't get enough people in here, we've got people who want to come and who can't come, then at that particular moment in time, we're successful.
the Charlton average over Selhurst is about what, 6, 7?
It's just under 7 this year, and it was 9 in the first division.
It's 7 supporters.
No, there are 5. 5 halves.
2 away,
5 halves.
Well, that's currently measured by 3 times, 3 times over.
Well,
For locals, I mean, there are so many that I know, many don't know.
well, I hope they, I hope they will come along. Yes, hang on.
His phone's right.
No, it's all right. Let me put my money in.
Another time he went,
That 25 pence you can put towards the second half.
Right. Allow him to go on and kick the ball. Then he'd have to come up before the start of the game.
Mr. Alwen, but that is,
I wrote you a letter to say after watching Charlton for 64 years, I was rather disgruntled with the 80% increase in the pension season.
Right.
Now, you kindly replied, which I appreciate, but you never really came to the source of it.
Well,
I think 80% is a pretty steady increase.
yeah. No, I think everybody. But I'm not trying to. We felt that that's what the prices had to be, and we had to take the risk. I know people had not got as much money in their pocket. We also looked at what we were going to have to spend on the ground. Now, we.
Financial crisis.
It's another crisis. Right, I mean, at the end of the road, I mean, that's what we decided the prices were going to have to be, rightly or wrongly.
You know, it was the supporters of the future of the club, but you seem to sacrifice the old age pension rates for the benefit of the juniors. As I say, I know the juniors are trying to push it back home to the club, but what I'm nothing special because I've been going 64 years, but surely those 64 years, 60 years, 50 years, whatever, could count.
Yeah, I think they certainly do, and we haven't. I mean, we haven't intentionally tried to price people out of it. You know, I mean, that's the last thing in the world. But we felt we know what's got to be spent. We know we've also got to try and make sure, as I've been saying about the product's got to be right. You know, we want to try and give ourselves half a chance to, for instance, I mean, Kernighan will come, but we can get him. We need two others as well, probably. I mean, because you can't play a whole season in the second division with 11 young heads, you know, or 11 sets of young lads. It's got to be a combination, and we probably need a couple of other players as well.
But the point is, I mean, if you charge even £1 too much, you only got to lose 100 people at £7 a go, and you're losing £700, aren't you? I mean,
yeah, but I think
every one person you lose, you've got to have another £1 for every 7 people season tickets.
That's right.
So that's got to be weighed up. If 2,000 people don't go, you're better off selling the season ticket at £1 or two less, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean that's a decision. That's a decision one just.
The other two will go occasionally. One of them said it would be very, very occasional.
Right.
I mean, it's insignificant amount, but I mean.
No, I mean, no, I mean,
yeah,
no, we appreciate that, but what I'm sure you'll find is that it's not just Charlton Athletic and Hetchy charging higher prices. I mean, the prices would have gone up next season anyway, simply because of the work. Our share of, I mean, just take last season, our share of the work, the tailor work at Selhurst Park, for which we get no return at all, was just over £100,000.
I've got a couple of questions. I'm veering off slightly on slightly different. Obviously, over the last couple of years with the Valley Party and supporters have been very actively involved in the struggle to return to the Valley. To what extent now is the club prepared to listen to the supporters' wishes, either in direct negotiation with supporters elected groups or in other ways?
Well, I have a meeting with the supporters club, whatever it is, the supporters club representatives once a month, once every 2 months. So I get a nominated, you know, it's usually the chairman of the supporters club and 3 or 4 other representatives, when we discuss, you know, what's going on and what isn't going on. They make their views known, I make my views known.
Yeah. Do you see it at time? There's been a lot of talk.
Take your sauce off the straw.
I don't need a sauce. Do I have the tea and the sauce? And that's what I want to find out. See, if it's not enough, then you've got more people and you're successful. Then you put a new south stand or a new north stand. You know, you can make it. Order. As long as people come, you can make it back into 30,000.
I know we're thinking the top line, West End. There were 16,000 odd, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's only one match, and that's with Charlton playing over there, not Charlton.
That's right.
16,000 would be nothing, wouldn't it?
No, but that's as long as that was going to be a constant problem for one-off games and 2 or 3. Yeah, that happened. That always happens in the sport. But it's got to make, that's got to happen on lots and lots of occasions before you can actually act on it, because it's enormous. You've got to be absolutely certain that you need another 5,000 seats before you go and spend another 5 million, or try and spend 5 million on a stand, because that's what it costs. I mean, you know, that's the problem. And if it's only for one-off games, then fine. I mean, I don't want, as I said, I don't want to leave people outside, but I want people to think, you've got to get in early, because there may not be enough room. May well, yeah, I should hope so.
I just said matches in 1985 and it was less than you ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but
Just literally in the same position then as you finished with the second division this season.
yeah, and there was
What's happened left season? You tripped.
that's what I've been trying to say.
There's enough interesting conjured up over these last few years.
Well, but we've also, since we've been at Selhurst, the hardcore of the club is probably 50 or 60% greater than it was in those last few years of the Valley anyway.
So you must have something on top of that,
Yeah.
local.
Yeah.
No, not.
I mean, I would be disappointed if there wasn't initially a 5,000 or 6,000 hardcore anyway.
But I just wanted to finish the question about supporters liaising with the club itself. But do you envisage a day when there will be an elected representative of supporters actually sitting on the boards of the top football clubs in the Football League?
No.
Never?
No.
For what reasons?
Because I mean, nothing against supporters, but I mean, if you, this is going to sound sort of pretty harsh, I suppose, but if you listen to, or I listen to a lot of the time says to me emotionally, and I listen to all the supporters, you'd be out of business, unfortunately, because it's, yes, and unfortunately we're in a day and age, and it's always been the same, but it probably hasn't happened in the past. Football clubs are no different to any other business at the end of the road. The fact that the product is 90 minutes on a Saturday afternoon is no different to the fact that you produce back to the tins of baked beans. Either they're good ones and they'll sell, or they won't. And what you've got to make sure, or try and make sure, is the thing actually runs as a proper business.
So would you actually say...
So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying the supporter, a supporter or anybody, wouldn't be able to give advice. The chances are that the advice is emotional advice.
But when you say that when your initial involvement with the club, you as a supporter yourself, coming into the club, putting a tremendous amount of money into the club as well, was that not your head ruling your wallet, or was it?
Oh yes,
Was
yeah.
there a lot of emotion involved in that as well?
You have to sort of you have to weigh it up. And I'm not.
I'm the soundest investments you've made in the short term. Going back to your years.
No, but I'm not against supporters, but I think one's got to accept is that the football clubs, and this has always been one of the problems, is that they've never really been run as one would probably try and run a normal business. I mean, it is a normal business.
But why don't they have more limited companies in football clubs?
Why don't they have PLC? Because
Make it successful business.
there's no reason that some of the largest companies in this country are private companies. You don't have to be a PLC. You don't have to be a publicly quoted company. And in fact, of course, because it is very, very high profile, and Tottenham, if Tottenham had not have been a PLC, they've got their problems. Probably their problems would have been resolved in a very much quieter way, which would have probably been better for everybody. I think one has to look at the fact, and that's one of the main reasons I don't think football clubs should be publicly quoted companies, because they are such high-profile companies. I think there's absolutely no reason why there shouldn't be a wider share ownership in football clubs. But I think to have shares bought and sold, the chances are, in fact, if you look at all the people who hold the Tottenham shares, in fact, they're Tottenham supporters are doing it for an emotional reason, not from a business reason at all.
But the British Telecom and British Gas haven't broke yet, have they? No, they've got a lot of customers.
They haven't made a cock of it. Tottenham make money out of their football. Their biggest problem was that they decided that they could make money out of fashion, leisure wear, and all the bits and pieces. And that was just a bad business decision.
Just to finish up on the sort of supporters question, we've heard a lot of us in the press, and I was very involved as well, as with some other people here in the whole campaign over the past couple of years. What have been the attitudes of the board over that time, say from the time of the rejection of the planning application back in January, the announcement of the Valley Party, the promotion of the Valley Party, standing in the elections? Did you always see that as being a positive thing, or was it at any time viewed as being a hindrance to your own negotiations with the council?
No, it was never a hindrance. We always felt that the council were sort of, it was like having a sort of coconut shine, really. The council, we never ever, with all due respect to anybody who's ever been involved with the local authority, they have been less than, all right, we've got our consent, and it's probably easy to say now, but they have never been particularly helpful. They have never gone out of their way. They have made a lot of noises that they wanted Charlton back, they wanted to do this, but in fact they've made it extremely difficult. And I'm sure a lot of the pressure on them came last year, and I think in one particular instance it came, was when the chairman of the planning committee lost his seat. And I think at that particular moment in time, the councillors decided, whoops, if I want to continue, maybe I should actually listen to this football club.
So do you think that we would be sitting here today talking about the return to the Valley had all this not happened in the last year?
Very, very difficult to say. I would have said the pressure would have still been there. We weren't going to give up, but certainly, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't.
From the supporters and from the media,
without the Valley, without that specific pressure point on the local authority, then I think we might well be able to argue that we might not have got our consent. I don't think we'd ever got a consent out of Simon Alwen. I'm nothing wrong. He's perfectly entitled to his opinion, but he was absolutely wasn't a football supporter.
I had no qualms on who to vote for in my ward, because the man standing here, he's got a Kent tie and a Charlton Low Valley rosette. The Kent County Cricket Club and Charlton Athletic. So he had to get right.
It's quite funny because having had some very difficult meetings with Simon Alwen over a period of time, and the planning committee in general, nothing against him, but I thought at that particular moment in time it's something I probably would never ever see again, possibly because he's wasn't a football supporter, certainly wasn't a Charlton supporter, and I've just, the prison that's just opened, the Belmarsh. Hang on, we're both going to be in there together, because I've just gone onto what they call the board of visitors, the monitors, and I looked and I got the list the other day of the board of visitors, and who should be down there? Simon Alwen. So he's now a colleague. Yeah. So it's slightly come full circle.
It's going to find some way past
Yeah.
this time.
Do you think this night ban was more of a having with this proposed law and everything is unreasonable?
No, I think from a resident's point of view, our point really was not that 12 o'clock in particular, was the fact that the planning officers, the professionals, had actually said 7 days a week at 2 o'clock, and there was the officer's recommendation to the members, and that's what they said they were going to do. We get to the night, and suddenly, we get the googly, and they changed moved the goalposts, or whatever everyone likes to describe it.
On the green,
That's a good idea.
You see, my wife said to me, I think 12 o'clock's quite late enough. Then I said, it was when we were
Oh, that's open 24 hours a day now. Probably doesn't shut before 4 o'clock, if you can imagine.
But I know by my own sons, they used to be getting ready to go out from 9:30 onwards, and I used to say, God, the night's over. But for them it isn't.
No, it's only just starting. They don't do anything before 10 o'clock
I
these
know,
days.
but that's what I can't make my wife understand when I said they want it open till 2.
Yeah.
She just won't let you out late.
No, I think from a
To go to the palace, I've got to get a late pass when we go there.
from a resident's point of view, I think that is perfectly reasonable. I mean, I think, you know, do you want people bombing out of there? You know. Sorry.
He's not supposed to notice me. Coming back to the valley, sir. Bill said this year you're going to be limited to the
Talking about the 12 o'clock. Are there
I've got.
just a minute. Are there going to be reasonable provision made for disabled, which were absolutely non-existent for the valley?
Yes, we've got to. We won't get a safety certificate. I mean, we would do that anyway, but I mean, we won't get a safety certificate unless you provide facilities for everybody these days, and that includes disabled, you know, anybody. Then you're not going to get. You won't get a safety certificate.
Mr. Alwen, going back to the finances and that sort of thing,
I'll try and ignore those.
It's a difficult question to ask, but pretty easy to answer because I don't really perceive it's rude or sort of person. But what I can't understand, what others can't understand, is where the money to a football club goes. Now, the Charlton Athletic Football Club is existing. Now, in the days of Brixton, it appeared that everything that was played in the Charlton Football Club was Brixton. Where does Charlton Athletic or a football club's money become theirs, like all promotion ventures, or where does it all become the board of directors? I mean, if you was to back up tomorrow...
No, it's no different to any other business. There are two shareholders at the present time, which in fact is myself and Mike Norris.
Yeah.
If the club made a profit, I suppose you either decide to put it back into the club and buy, or you take it out as dividends. We've all we've been doing for years and years is making losses, so it's never arisen.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's a different question to ask because I don't want to be personal, but I mean, on a whole, if he was to back up tomorrow and take your money out, does Charlton Football Club ever retain his money? Where's he going to get his money out?
We certainly wouldn't have any players at that time.
I mean to say, where this commercial ventures isn't Alwen or Norris's, it's Charlton's that people put into. Where does it
No. I mean, it really is no different to, I mean, any business or any company that one, or a shop or whatever it is. If there were, I mean, what you're trying to do, I suppose, if you were a normal company, then you would be trying to produce profits that you would then produce dividends for your shareholders. Well, trying to get the football clubs to run as a business is one thing. Whether in fact you ever take your profits out in form of dividends or you keep it in, chances are that if you do make profits, you leave it in. You see, there's what clubs that make profits do. They always, you don't want to pay corporation tax or anything like that. So you go and buy a player. I don't know whether you noticed that before the end of financial years, you said a lot of clubs suddenly go out and spend. Arsenal, for instance, bought Colin Pates for £450,000 because they'd stopped them paying £450,000 worth of corporation tax.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at, it wasn't until Charlton had moved away from the valley and all this leverage job and went on earlier that they realised that Brixton owned the valley. Now,
well, I think they always...
Basically, they did, didn't they? They didn't even know that Brixton owned the valley, according to what I read.
Well,
who controlled him putting shareholders' money or Charlton's money into a private venture, which turned out free? That's how I see it.
No, the football club and the Valley. I mean, the Valley was owned by a company called Alwen, which was Michael Gluxton.
Yeah.
I mean, he sold the football club. He sold the football club to Mark Cullion. He sold it effectively. I mean, that's at the end of the road. That's.
Actually, did it that income money was probably Charlton's money that went through the turnstile.
He bought the valley for a son, really. And then he sold half of it to Gwinsborough Council.
Oh, but I mean, but that was years. I mean, the Valley's been. That was.
Only son, wasn't it?
40, 50, 60. I don't know when did they buy it? 30.
As I could see, he had a dog in the manger attitude.
He'd lost interest.
He didn't want Charlton, but then he didn't want anybody else to make a go and so
No.
that is the
I mean, he always said that nobody would ever get a planning consent on it. So, right, we've proved him wrong from that point of view. But what he would have liked to have done was, if he thought he could, once the football club had gone, was get a planning consent, put houses on it, disappear. I mean, that's really
must
what.
have happened to him along the way, because nobody convinced me that a man was a director of a football club and a chairman for about 20 years, about 25 years, and didn't have a love of that.
No, it's very strange. The person, his father did certainly. Michael, Derek Upton is probably the person who knows. He used to, when Derek was playing, Michael was a little kid and he used to come in to the dressing room, sit on his knee, and sort of try and get sort of sixpence off the players. And he had an absolute love of the club. I mean, he was brought up with the football club. What changes people, I don't know. But over a period of time, Michael lost all interest in the football club. I mean, it really did. Yeah. It just gone.
I think he put Charlton in a position which he shouldn't have done.
Well, he wasn't
really mean
interested.
That, because knowing his father well, when he took over the club in the first place, he had quite a personal tragedy.
Oh yes. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't. He's not. I mean, one has to start off with the premise that he wasn't a happy person in the first place, and so things weren't right.
I often wonder how you think we run Charlton 60, 70 years ago. We didn't have no backing of the council. We didn't have anything like a director like you got. We had nothing. But all we run it on was raffle tickets. But we made a success of it.
Yeah.
But now,
we still
financial difficulties.
We still look at Derek Upton's wages in the book that Jimmy in that book in the training ground. Jimmy said he gets whatever it was, said, and in his comments after his first season, don't think he's going to make it.
I looked at that and I was amazed at the low amount of income tax Derek paid compared with the rest of them.
But if you relate the costs, you see what of today and what
Well, it was no different in those days.
There's no.
Take the wages. The different wages today is in that same ratio as it was before the war.
Yeah, but you think of them. They are astronomical. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there is a situation. I mean, we're on to wages that we are caught up in what one has to pay football players to play football league football, and we can't say because we're Charlton and we only had 5,000-6,000 coming on, we can't pay you those wages. If we wanted to play in the first division, they expect first division wages. Second division, there's very little difference. You can't say to them, well, because there aren't that many people turning up. The only thing you can do is run it on a very small squad.
We ran it on 3 people only. 3 people only ran it on raffle tickets to pay the wages, because we know the wages are only a few quid a week. But of course, you've got to remember that in those days.
And you were allowed to stand on a mud heap too. You see, you didn't.
Wait a minute, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a man.
You can't stand on a mud heap these days because the police won't let you.
What I want to know, why can't I now be allowed to stand up? Why am I allowed to sit there?
Because that's what we've all been instructed to do. Unfortunately, after Hillsborough, well, if you think of pure safety, then it is eminently sensible, because the one thing that you can actually control in crowds is if you've got 1,000 seats here and 1,000 seats there, you can never have more than 1,000 people there or 1,000 people there. The problem that you've got with standing is that you don't get people, you get people in groups. This may have a limit of 1,000 people, and you get 1,000 people in there. It doesn't necessarily mean the standing terrace is safe, because you might get 100 people standing at that end, you get people moving, and in fact, standing, unfortunately.
You're sitting in a stand, everybody stands up.
No.
The last game at the Valley, we were sitting in an old stand, and when the ball came down the pitch to this end, I lost the game because all I saw was this bloke's backside as he stood up in front of me.
Somebody complained to me the other day they paid £38 for a seat to go to Watts Rumblow's Cup final, and they got a seat in the far corner at Wembley, where you're about 150 yards from the playing surface, and because of the sight lines there, and because everybody else stands up, they reckon he saw the ball about 4 times.
Yeah, it's the same at Chelsea in the stand. We went there once in the stand, and that was at their Charlton.
For 38,
It's terrible. You can't see anything at all.
No, I know everybody. I know a lot of people like to stand, and probably at the end of the road you get them virtually safe. But unfortunately, that's not what we've been told. We're going to have standing in the valley. Yes,
Yeah, that is safely true, isn't it? The FA has lifted that ban on it. Come up one side of it.
No, you have to, what you've got to do is decide which side you want to go in from. No, that's not our choice. That's the police. And we got major problem. We had a major problem because at one stage or other, they weren't going to let us come in from the police from the St Bartram gate. But they've now decided they will let us do that. But it means that half these terraces will go in from Harvey Gardens, and half will come in from the St Bartram.
It's a new idea, isn't it?
Oh, have I presume that the local, the Charlton police have been in liaison with the police down at Selhurst?
They were there the last few games. They've never run a football match, of course. The 2 policemen at Greenwich. Yeah, I think we will actually at some stage. Yeah. No, that's going. That fray. A bit out of date. Yeah.
George?
I think it's gone.
Mr. Alwen, when Brixton took over this club in 1933,
What time?
I went there at 34 nights ago. Brixton's paid 69,000 for Charlton there. And when come end, even at the end of the war, they took their £69,000 out of the club. Now really and truly, the young boy we're talking about, Michael, he was about this big, and in 1940, beginning in 1943, I was injured and I was stationed a long way off Finsbury Circus, and Thomas returned from London Bridge to Charlton. I used to walk home from there. I was to do training, and Mr. Stanley, that's the vice chairman, his 2 sons were there. One was 5 and the other one was 7. Yes, boy, 7 is dead now. But young Mike, when he goes and his dad put the ball down, he's going to take a penalty. I got one leg. And of course, I go that way, going around, the ball's over there. He was great. That man always seemed to look after me any time when I went down. He'd always say, coming up there, come on, you come up with my box. And he'd do all that. But really, he lost heart somehow. And then, that was the end of that when Helio come.
Yeah, I've no idea what changed him or why he lost interest, but he did.
He lost everything. He just didn't want to know.
We never found. One thing we never actually found were where the 1947 Cup final receipts went. Can't find any trace of those in the books.
He was one of the youngest members to go on the board of the FA.
Yeah, that's right. No, yeah.
Yeah, it was relevant. We've only got by that year because it went up 6 from the previous year.
We've only got a few minutes left, so... That's right, I'm just saying. One question, say it.
No, I was going to say, how do you conduct yourself in the direct?
Goes mad, right? Western.
Because I've been in the director's box of Charlton, and Michael Bixby used to sit a whole game like this.
Yeah, I've not.
No.
No, I mean, as soon as I'm watching a game, I'm a supporter. I'm not, and I don't get violent. I don't actually. I leave the shouting at the referee to my wife and Mrs. Upton. They do, but they can. I don't think we can actually sit there and abuse the referee. But they sit a few rows in front and shout like that.
I sit right next to the boat, just like I've heard you.
No.
There's something we haven't mentioned. The two new directors that have joined the board.
Yes.
Can you tell us just briefly, so we're running out of time now, just a little bit about who they are, where they came from?
Yeah. Right.
The two new directors.
We've always been a small group, but the board's never, as far as I know, I can't remember, it's never that big anyway. But it did come down to 4, and we felt that, apart from anything else, some of the load, an awful lot of work, and also financial work required, and we'd extend it by 2. Martin Simons, one of them, lives within walking distance. In fact, he came down to the Valley Club the other night, and it takes about 15 minutes. He's always lives up in Shooters Hill Road, and he's been Charlton supporter for forever, and he's 42. Was involved in the oil business, and as far as we were concerned, he was a Charlton supporter through and through, and I think that's what one needs. And exactly the same with Richard Murray. Richard Murray lives, unfortunately from his point of view, he has to come round the M25 because he lives in Surrey, lives in Banstead, around there. Again, a Charlton supporter forever. He's got a business which in fact is involved in making screens, so these big screens on pitches and scoreboards and things like that. So when I say the chances are we probably will have a scoreboard, I think we and they're both early 40s, so
And who proposed them to join the board, or was it did they?
No, it was an introduction through a season ticket holder. In fact, somebody I know in Lloyd's, he used to be a Charlton scene. He introduced me, and we sat down, and talked. You've got to make sure there's a reasonable amount of common ground. I mean, apart from the fact, the head start if you happen to be a supporter.
I think the two matches that one or two directors was MC Cowdery and Dennis Pollard. Could never understand how.
Yeah, well.
So let's just keep it the last couple of minutes for the two new directors to find out a bit more.
Richard's a survivor, he's been around for a long time.
Yeah, he told me he saved the class.
He was certainly around in '84, he did a lot of negotiation. Yeah. He was rushing to and fro from the courtroom, etc.
So are they putting money into the club?
Yes.
They are, a substantial amount.
Well, never. It's never enough. It's never enough.
We've got to put a lot in this year.
Yeah, they're certainly putting. They're certainly putting.
If he hasn't put that bloody Lamborghini.
But just right at the end, last thing, the first match at the Valley, whenever that happens, be August or September. Have you?
Grimsby.
Yes, and what? Because the first part, have you thought about sort of a real show opener, either a foreign or a top?
Oh yes, but we won't do that until the thing is done.
The Holster West and West
Yeah,
Ham.
I don't think we won't. I mean, the two clubs. I mean, certainly of an English club, I think, because we have a reasonable relationship. Well, Lenny certainly has a reasonable relationship with Ferguson. Would be Man United as a friendly, or
to like each other as well.
yeah, or one of the continental clubs. Unfortunately, like all these things with the continental clubs, they only come, of course, if you pay them. They'll come anyway. I mean, you can have Real Madrid, we can have Barcelona. You'd have anybody there as long as you pay them the money. I think an English club would come. So, but presumably maybe Arsenal.
You could have the Royal Artillery with the, you said 15,000 go to the valley before the war just to hear this bloke play the post in the gully. It's on the terrace.
I think you're going to get a little dance. He wants you for a dance. Before the war, Mr. Alwen, there was four directors. What's the name? Albert, Stanley, Law.
Yeah.
Montgomery. No, before the war. Four directors. There was Mr. Albert, Mr. Stanley, Clark.
He was a doctor, wasn't he?
Dr. Clark, yes, Dr. Clark.
He was
Montgomery was on the road with him.
He was Humphrey, people who built the stand, and they placed him on the board, on that alone. And there was another one, they had four, so they got 4 now, so it's taken a long time to get back your party.
Yeah.
The toilets down there are still the same when I went in 1926.
Yeah, well, hopefully that'll be...
I think it's a preservation order on there.
It's busted a bit more, you can see choice.
Preservation order on there.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, I'm afraid that we've run out of time. Thanks very, very much, Roger. Amongst this group, that's the figure of the number of years of support that's gone to Charlton.
That's not bad.
1,130 years.
That's very good.
That's continuous support.
Some of us are getting a bit old.
It's chuck out time. Closing time.
Anyway, thanks very much indeed. Very
Nice
interesting.
to see you.
You can't stop up here.
No, somebody brought me down, but hopefully might be able to get a train back.
Right, turn left and down.
Yeah.
Well, cross over the railway line and go back, so change the entrance.
And then,
The old entrance isn't by the square anymore, it's
Right.